Hello, I'm Skye Kamesis, one of the directors at PandoraStar, and today we're going to be talking about forgiveness. Stay with me. I know this is like a tender topic and there's no judginess going to come at you from here. We're just going to talk. We're going to talk about what it means, because an open conversation around forgiveness means empowered people, better health, more money, and a lot more maturity in our emotional and spiritual circles. So let's deal with some of the fears around forgiveness first. So one of the biggest fears around forgiveness is that if you forgive the person or the situation, then it will happen to you again. And the idea is that unforgiveness is your protection. So let's unpack that one step at a time. Very often when a situation in life goes wrong and we don't understand why it happened to us, our mind, because it's wired to work in story, will create a story, and it would rather have the worst story imaginable than not knowing what happened. So very often, because we're stressed and because we're in trauma, our mind will jump to the most stressful story, and normally it will involve blame or resentment or vilifying a person, a situation, or a place. That could be your job, that could be your partner, that could be your child, that could be yourself, okay? And that's how self-hatred starts. But the basics and the most simple scientific truth is that the mind needs a story. So you have to be very careful about the stories that you construct around painful or traumatic situations, particularly those that involve other people and people that you love. Because once we've made that story, we very rarely assess or analyze whether or not that story is accurate, and we repeat it to ourselves over and over again, often daily in the presence of that person, as a way of justifying our own behavior, as a way of trying to make ourselves feel in control when we actually don't feel safe, and as a way of reassuring ourselves that we do protect ourselves or that we do know what's going on. So the biggest fear that we just discussed around forgiveness is it happening again. So what you have to understand is the story that you tell your subconscious mind over and over and over again is actually what you're telling it to look for. It's what you're telling it to create. So if I tell let's say my friend, buys a yellow car, and I'm like, that's a very unusual color. I've never seen that color of car before. And we discuss how unusual it is and why yellow is her favorite color. And then you walk out into the street and suddenly you notice, oh yeah, all the taxi cabs are yellow. Oh yeah, that actually was a yellow car I saw there. And suddenly your subconscious mind is looking for all the different yellow cars. And it's the same thing with stories. So let's say, you and your partner had an argument, and then your story you tell yourself is that you're unlovable and that all men are idiots. You walk out into the street and you're going to notice all the idiotic things that men do, and your mind is just going to filter out all the dumb things that women do. So you have to be really careful. What story you tell your subconscious mind is what it's going to look to recreate in the world. And what you pull out from the world and from other people is then what recreates in your life. So your fear mind posits that if you forgive somebody, then the bad situation is more likely to happen again. And as I've just unpacked for you, if you don't forgive somebody, that toxic story is going to make it almost inevitable that this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and that it does happen again, because it's training your subconscious mind to look for the things that you don't want. So when you actually forgive that person, you're not saying that you don't deserve justice. You're not saying that their behavior was okay. And you're not saying that you're going to accept this behavior again. What you are saying is that you know that the story you tell your subconscious mind to focus on is what your subconscious mind believes to be true. And that if you allow yourself to focus on a negative story, then you're going to recreate these negative experiences over and over again, whether in the same relationship or whether with somebody else. And that's why people often say, I feel like I'm dating the same guy over and over again. Why am I attracting the same person? It's like, well, you've still got the same story. You've still got the same belief systems, and you haven't really unpacked why you're going for those people. So take a moment to just really let that just break down in your mind, that when you forgive somebody, you're literally reducing the chances of it ever happening again. Things happen. Some things are random, but you're dramatically reducing the chances of this happening to you again by forgiving that person and by making sure that the story you're telling yourself about the situation is an accurate story and what you want your subconscious mind to be looking for. You cannot change the past by changing a mental story, but what you can do is develop the mental and emotional resilience to deal with these situations in a much better way, with much less stress, with much less pain, with much less suffering. So the next objection that I get to people refusing to forgive is this justice, this if I forgive, I will not get justice. Now, what you're ensuring is that if you don't forgive the person, is that you will actually never get justice. Justice is you receiving inner peace and you allowing the person to make amends for what they did to you in their life. Now, sometimes we get that. Sometimes it's simply not possible. If you've lost a child, there's nothing somebody can do that's going to make up for that loss. If someone's destroyed your business, there's nothing they can do that's going to fix that. If someone has broken your heart, there are things that you can break, like a heart or a spirit or someone's sexuality, that though they can be recreated, they can never be remade. It's like when your kid is little and you know, it's got a goldfish and the goldfish dies and you buy new goldfish, and the moment you put that goldfish in there, they're like, that's not my goldfish. It's the same energy of some things are not replaceable. They can have substitutes, but there are no replacements. There are some things that are sacred, and your heart is one of them. Your health is another. You know, things that you pour your blood, your sweat, and your tears into, your time, your savings. These are really things that are very difficult to replace. And if you're waiting for somebody else to offer, you're the one that's in this constant state of stress and pain, waiting for them to give you back what you lost, instead of allowing the universe to provide for you. And that's what you have to realize, that there is a law of cause and effect. It's one of the most basic spiritual laws, and that what you give out will return to you. But here's the caveat. Your good can come to you from everywhere and everyone. And if you're focused on controlling how that good comes to you, then you're focused on making sure that the justice is going to come to you from the person who abused you, or the money's going to come to you from the person that you lent it to. You're then blocking the millions of opportunities that the universe is making available to you to have the money returned, or to have the love be given back to you, or to be healed, because you're so trying to control how it's going to come. So what you have to realize is that justice comes from everywhere and everyone, and it doesn't often come the way that you think that it should, partly because the system is damaged, partly because very often our version of the story is not true. You haven't been there with this person their whole life. You have no idea what they're feeling. You have your beliefs about what they're going through, which is not the same thing as the truth, whereas the universe has completely different sets of understandings that play much deeper knowledge of the person that you're dealing with than you do. And the universe doesn't hold you back. You know, if you're at a more advanced level than the person that harmed you, you don't have to wait until they get to a place where they can do what needs to be done to, you know, balance out justice. You can trust that if you say to the universe, okay, you know something, I forgive them, I can absolve the loss, and I know that the damages, everything that I lost will be returned to me. Nothing is actually lost in the universe. Everything I need comes to me. I'm in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. You'll find that all sorts of doors and opportunities open to you that weren't open before. But when you're focusing on that one person being where you get the money back from, or the damages, or them going to jail, for example, normally what happens is you get very bitter and you get very broken, and you waste a lot of money trying to force justice to come around. Justice happens every day. It's not something you can force. It's not even a human-made idea. Justice is a law of nature. It's a law of balance. And there are really, really big forces working here, invisible forces beyond your knowledge. So that's the second one. So you still get justice when you forgive somebody. It just might not necessarily come from the person that harmed you, but it will come from the universe. You will get a really true understanding of what justice is, and your justice will come. The universe is not sitting up there thinking that you don't get the justice that you deserve, but you cannot make it about one person who probably has no understanding of what justice is in the first place. It's like asking for love from somebody who's not capable of giving you love, asking for justice for somebody that doesn't understand justice, and is selfish and entitled, or wounded and damaged. Is you're going to be waiting a long time. It's like asking a poor person to pay back a £1 million debt. You know, you're much better off moving on to investments that are appropriate for you. And it's the same thing with emotional bankruptcy or spiritual bankruptcy. You have to be able to recognize when the person has nothing left to give, and that's probably why they were acting in these destructive ways to begin with. The other one is fake forgiveness. So people don't want to pretend to be somewhere that they're not. They're like, I can say it, but it wouldn't be true. I don't actually forgive them. And, you know, I'm not okay with them, and I don't ever plan on being okay with them, and I'm not going to be dishonest. So here's the deal. You don't have to like somebody to forgive them, and you don't have to be nice to them to forgive them. And I'm not going to give you this rubbish about you don't even have to forgive them if you don't want to. You don't. You don't just forgive somebody when it's about you. It's in that word, actually. Forgiving is forgiveness. It's to keep giving no matter what. So what happens when you get hurt is that most people shut down and they stop giving, period. Now, when this happens, that means the flow of giving and receiving gets blocked as well, and the person becomes very isolated. And this can lead to all sorts of things, from physical issues to mental health problems and just feelings of depression and isolation. And when you decide to keep giving, forgiving, you make the choice to keep giving anyway, mercy comes into the picture, which is like a root value. Most people think, and we're very good at knowing exactly what other people need to be forgiven for, but we're not very good at knowing what we need to be forgiven for. And that's part of, I think, the narcissism of our generation, is that we're very good at pointing out other people's flaws, and we don't realize that there's four fingers pointing back, and that you don't even know what your main issues are. So that's a really important thing to realize, is that you need forgiveness as much as other people need forgiveness, and you need mercy as much as they need mercy, and you need the time to work on your skills. Someone's saying to you, I'll forgive you if you stop this habit, is easy, but stopping the habit isn't. Habits are deep ingrained patterns of behavior and thought. And then if you literally belittle somebody every time that they can't do it, it's going to make for a very long, very difficult recovery. So it's really important to understand how much forgiveness is based on the decision to give anyway, and to literally stay in mercy, that we all have places in our life where we are out of control versus in control. We all have places in our life where we would like to behave differently or act differently, but we simply have not developed the emotional, spiritual muscles to be able to do that yet, and believe in ourselves and in each other until we get to that place, as opposed to beating ourselves up or using the fact that the person failed as a way of validating your own cruelty or upset feelings, sadness, anger. And last but not least, that people often don't forgive because they're scared they'd go back to an abusive situation. Now, here's the deal, it's what we just said. Forgiveness is not condoning bad behavior, and it's definitely not playing the martyr. So the idea is not for you to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be abused. That's not forgiveness. What that is fear. So when you actually forgive somebody who's abusing you, what happens is you're going to find the courage to move beyond that abuse. And you're going to find the courage to either, save the money or build the strategy that you need to be able to make it on your own in the world. You're going to find the ways that you need to recover. Forgiveness is not ever going back to the way things were before. Forgiveness is a kind of an emotional and spiritual death of the past so that the present can be born. And that's what forgiveness gives you. It's the courage to move beyond old patterns. And that's when you've achieved real forgiveness, because it gives you this sense of peace and detachment that you just don't have without it. But the truth is that you're not dishonest when you say to somebody, I forgive you, but you're still feeling a bit pissed, or you're still feeling a bit jealous, or you're still feeling hurt or angry. That's not dishonesty, that's courage. It's choosing to do what's right, as Brené Brown would say, over what's fast, fun, or easy. It's choosing to practice your values and your virtues of forgiveness instead of just professing them or teaching them. And it's not going to feel comfortable because it's not in your comfort zone. Just look outside, look around you, look at every movie you watch. Humans are taught violence and revenge. We're not taught forgiveness, compassion, and mercy. We're taught how to bring other people down. We're taught that sarcasm is funny. We're taught that destroying people's self-esteem is humor, and it's something we pay to have other people to do on stage. We used to literally have stadiums where we publicly humiliated and tortured people. So the idea that we're now shifting into mistakes are correctable, humans deserve love and mercy and understanding and forgiveness, and that practice is what's required for us to achieve mastery, that's a huge shift in consciousness. That's not a small shift, that's a phenomenal shift in consciousness. That are we to each adopt the practical application of forgiveness would change the face of the world. And that's where PandoraStar can kind of come into the picture, our light entrainment machine, which is the matching your feelings to your desires of who you want to be and who you want to become. Because you might want to forgive your husband, but you just can't get rid of your anger. You might want to be able to forgive your mom, but you just panic and you feel like you're 4 years old every time she makes a comment or says something that you don't agree with. So Pandora literally is going to put you in a state where your body can start to recalibrate and it can start to release, and where you can think about these traumas and see these amazing mandalas and colors and shapes instead of reliving these negative traumatic experiences. And it's going to put you in a state where forgiveness is possible, because if you're in a highly stressed beta state or in a deep depression delta state, it's very hard to create the states like theta, gamma, that are going to allow you to make that shift and